the book. You may have already had your copy autographed and delivered, and we're very, very excited about this particular book. My name is Kathy Leitch. I'll be your host this evening. I am very, very happy on behalf of the Montessori Foundation and the Montessori Foundation Family Network to be introducing this wonderful, wonderful book that we have an opportunity to share with not only our Montessori parents, but parents around the world who can benefit from the kinds of things that our authors have written about. So thank you for being here. I'm going to do some introductions. We're going to have an opportunity for questions and conversation, and we will be able to use the chat as well. So some of you may be streaming in from Facebook. Some of you are here on Zoom with us. Either way, you are welcome to use the chat feature, ask any questions you might like, make any comments in there. We will be monitoring that. So down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little bubble and you click on that to chat, and we are happy to have you do that. When it's time for participants to speak, you can unmute. You can raise your virtual hand, which is in the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. Then you pop up to the top of my screen and I can make sure you have an opportunity to speak and to share with us today. But we are going to start today with an introduction of our authors, and we have some panelists we'll introduce, then we'll circle back to the authors. So it's my very, very esteemed pleasure to introduce Tim Seldin and Lorna McGrath, who have authored this book that we're here to celebrate this evening. Tim, as many of you know, is president of the Montessori Foundation, chair of the International Montessori Council, and executive director of the Newgate School, our lab school in Sarasota, Florida. Tim has had many years involvement in education, Montessori education specifically, including being a student of Montessori from the time he was 2 through high school graduation. So he has certainly lived it. Tim also is the author of several other books, including The Montessori Way, which he co-authored with Dr. Paul Epstein, who's here tonight as well. So Tim's also a parent and a grandparent and a step-parent to many Montessori children. We can't leave that out, because I think of all things, that's probably what has qualified Tim the most to be part of this book and to have had these ideas in his collaboration with Lorna. So Lorna McGrath is the other author that we are here to celebrate this evening. Lorna also has many, many years of experience in Montessori education. She is currently the director of our Montessori Foundation Family Network, which is an outreach for parents. And Lorna, you may want to talk more about that later. But the network really does offer a number of resources for families and specifically for parents. Also, Lorna hosts the Montessori Family Life webinar series every Tuesday afternoon for parents and educators as well. So Lorna has served as a Montessori guide, as the associate head of school at the Newgate School, again, our lab school, and she currently is working. She's former accreditation director for International Montessori Council. So she's been doing a lot of Montessori work. She also is a parent of Montessori students, and so happy to say a grandparent of a current Montessori student, Otis, who we all get to see and hear about. So we're very, very happy to honor both of you this evening. And we're really happy about the contribution that you've made in collectively putting this work together from both of your experiences. And I think that really talk a lot more about what's in the book, why you wrote this particular book, and what's unique about this particular book for families. I love that it was published by DK Books. It has some really interesting layout, a very unique layout, and also some wonderful sketches that I think you'll find just as entertaining as the book itself and the content. I would like to take a moment to also introduce a couple of our panelists that are here with us today. I'm going to start with Tara Motzenbecker. Tara, if you could just kind of wave your hand so people know who you are. Tara is a child and adolescent therapist in Sarasota, Florida, who specializes in anxiety disorders and behavioral difficulties. Tara's also been the proud parent, Montessori parent for 10 years. So Tara, we're really happy you could be with us today. Tara has read the book and has some comments and some things to add. David Rotberg is here. So David, I see you there. Hi, David. Welcome. David's a lower elementary guide at Pines Montessori School, one of our IMC accredited schools, I have to say. David is also a faculty member of the Center for Guided Montessori Studies, CGMS, and one of our IMC affiliated and recognized teacher education programs. He serves as an accreditation verification visitor for IMC, and he is a contributor to Tomorrow's Child and Montessori Leadership magazines. He presents at conferences, and he shares that he is humbled by this work each day and has been in Montessori for a decade plus 2. So I love that. Thank you, David, for being here. Let's see, I have Mike. Michael's here. Mike Carter, nice to see you. Mike is a parent, I believe, of 2 Montessori children currently at the Newgate School in Sarasota, Florida. So we're happy to have Mike here with us too, who brings another one of those parent perspectives of how this book can be utilized as in a Montessori family. Let's see, I think I have, let me see who's next, because my screen switches, when someone else logs in. So Dr. Paul Epstein, you are here, right? I know I saw you. Oh, there you are. Hello, Paul. Very nice to have you. Paul is an internationally acclaimed Montessori author, educator, workshop leader, and keynote speaker. He has worked as a teacher, educator, and a consultant for schools and teachers and leaders around the world. So Paul, thank you for being here and contributing to this celebration this evening. We have several Montessori Foundation staff with us who work with the Family Network specifically. That would be Molly Pena. You'd see her up there. We also have Cheryl Allen. Hello, Cheryl. And Cheryl is also monitoring because we are simultaneously broadcasting on Facebook Live. So Cheryl will be monitoring those comments. We'll also be monitoring the comments in our chat here. I think I got everyone, I hope. And we just want to welcome all of you here. I'd like to start by, now that we've introduced everybody, do we have a panelist, maybe Tara, that you could share a little bit about what you thought when you received this book and had a chance to read through it? You have been a Montessori parent for a number of years, and I know that you do personally know Tim and Lorna.
Yes, I'd love to share my thoughts about this book. I enjoyed this book so much, devoured it. As I was going through, I've had the benefit of entering into the Montessori world when my youngest was just born. I mean, he was a newborn, me carrying my then 2-year-old into the classroom at Newgate. So I've been blessed by having Lorna's wisdom and knowledge and advice, suggestions, teachings throughout raising my children. So as I was reading the book, so many of the things I was like, oh my goodness, yes, Lorna taught me this. Lorna taught me this. I used to attend all of her parenting classes and everything, soaked up everything I could from her. So as I was reading this book, I was thinking like, oh yes, this tip helped me with this, or this way of dealing with this helped with this over the years. And not a day goes by that I'm not thankful that I have had those strategies as a parent, that I utilize so many of those things, because now my kids are in the tween years and I can see the difference. I mean, they are responsible, they are honest, they would rather be with us than anyone else. We have great relationships. So I'm so thankful for all of the tips in that book. And as I was reading it, I was like, okay, good. That's right. We were doing this. We did this right. Or, oh, I could have used that more over the years. It gave me more ideas for the future too. So as a parent, I am so thankful for all of the information in that book. Professionally, as a child therapist, I spend so much of my time, working with children individually, but a lot of it working with the parents, helping them to, make their relationship better with their children, helping them manage behavioral concerns that they're having with their kids. And as I was reading the book, I was thinking, wow, if every parent read this book, 75% of my workload would be gone. I mean, there's so many positive ideas and useful information in this book, that, it's laid out so easily, so clearly. If someone is struggling with one area, sure, open to page 42 and maybe like, let's talk about having a family meeting. Actually, I know that one's on page 23. um, but it's just that useful information. So, I strongly recommend this book for all parents, not just Montessori parents. It's so many useful tips for not only optimizing the education and responsibleness of your child, but just there's so much there that enhances the mental health, the mental well-being of your child and the whole of your family. So I recommend it to all parents. And I'm definitely keeping it in my office and going to go through some of it with some of my clients, just because it puts it more succinctly and so clearly and so effectively for people to be able to implement some of these things. So definitely going to be using it professionally as well.
Tara, thank you. And I'm sorry that Lorna and Tim are going to put you out of business, but in the long run,
Fine.
this is a really good thing, right?
Yeah,
And I think that one of the things that struck me about what you said is that, if parents would actually read and just try an idea, right? You don't have to try every idea every day. You start somewhere.
yeah.
And you brought up specifically the family meeting. How do you think that influences family dynamics in the typical family and this family who's struggling? What are your thoughts about family meetings? On page 23, I think you said.
It is. The illustration there is modeled after a picture of an actual family meeting of my family. So I'm in love with that page. So most times when parents come to me and say, like, a time after time, like we get into a fight over screen time constantly, it's always an issue, or bedtime is always an issue, or they don't clean up after themselves and they don't listen to me, whatever it is, 99% of the time, it's just communication. We just need to figure out a way to communicate and for the child to maybe learn how to do it. Maybe they don't know how to do it. They don't know what your expectations are. So that family meeting is the opportunity. It's a neutral time for anyone to bring up any concerns that they have in the family, and let's talk about it. Let's work on our problem solving together. It just increases the respect because we're all listening to each other. We're taking everyone's ideas into consideration. Everyone in the family is involved. And it's just that positive communication in a calm way, not in the heat of the moment where parents are upset because they just stepped on Legos that they told their child 15 times to clean up. It's just, it optimizes that communication, and it's the biggest change maker for things for ways that have been set for families. Like, just sit down for 20 minutes and that can change just with a positive conversation about it. So it's a huge change maker. That's always the thing that has stood out to me the most from the Montessori parenting teachings that I've had over the years too.
Well, thank you for that. And I think that you talk about that investment of 20 minutes and what a difference that can make proactively in the week. So thanks for sharing, Tara, and we'll come back to you if you have more to add and questions to ask. I'd love to go to Michael Carter. Michael is, looks like a nice pool area. You're sitting there. I'm feeling like that looks like very comfortable. We could all come and hang out, right?
Come on over.
Yeah. So, Michael, you've been a parent at the Newgate School, and I happen to know that when you and your wife were looking for a school, Montessori wasn't the first thing on your mind. You maybe knew about it or didn't. So tell us a little bit about your experience, and certainly your experience with the new book, Montessori for Every Family.
Thank you, Kathy. So yeah, our journey was a little bit different when we relocated to Florida. We fell into Montessori because it was the only place where we could put both of our children for daycare. So we started it on the daycare path, and over the course of the first year and a half, we just started to notice differences in our children as compared to their cousins or other children that we may have been hanging around. And, we said, hey, there's something to this Montessori thing. So we started asking questions, and the school that they were in at the time, they couldn't necessarily explain Montessori to us. They just said, it's a good thing, just keep going with it. And so we're like, okay, but we really do have questions. And so for about a year and a half, we asked questions, didn't really get the answers. And then we said, you know what, we should look at other Montessori schools and really try to, figure out if this is something that we want to do long term. And fortunately for us, we're living in the area where the best Montessori program in the whole world resides. And we were fortunate enough to get a meeting with Tim, and within 10 minutes, he had answered all the questions that we had been asking for the last 2 years. And we said, you know what, this is it. This is what we want to focus on. And we want to see if this is going to continue to be the opportunity that allow our children to continue to flourish. And so, here we are, I guess, 4 or 5 years later with Newgate, and the children are responding very well to the program, and it couldn't have been a better decision for us. And then in reading the book, right, so the parallel is we are now understanding Montessori, and we know that it's a good thing for our children. But in reading the book, this light goes on, and it says, it's not against the rules to actually follow some of these principles at home. And, it was kind of like an aha moment. And so in reading the book, there were some moments where we kind of smiled and said, hey, we're actually doing that at home. We didn't know that we were supposed to, or that it was good for us, but we were doing it. And then there were some other things that we looked at and said, hey, we're failing miserably in this particular section. And it only requires a small pivot to actually align our home life with what they're already being taught in school. So all those things together, the book is it's literally a step-by-step guide. You can pick the chapter that applies to your situation or to your life and focus on that one for a week or a couple of days. And then you can go on to the next one. You can pick the book up anywhere and open it to any chapter, and any chapter will give you something relevant that can apply, potentially apply to your household. And so I'm secretly waiting for our children to have another argument so I can try the hand holding and disarming squabbles. But they haven't had any arguments since I've been reading the book. So
it means it's really working, Mike.
it means it's really working. So, but we'll be looking forward to trying that one. And also the natural consequences. That's one where I know we've tried to shield our children from being injured, or shield them from making a mess. And, Chandra and I talked, and we said, you know what? It's just a little mess. And if they make the mess and have to clean it up, more often than not, they'll probably be a little bit more careful next time. And then we won't have to say anything. So those are a couple of takeaways that I have on the radar for us. And there's a few more in there as well.
Yeah, those are some great takeaways. And I love how you said you just could open it to any chapter. And, when we say chapter, sometimes we think, oh gosh, I'm going to have to read 25 pages. And these chapters are just a couple pages with the most specific information you could need, yet it can apply to all different ages. We'll get into that a little bit further. I also want to remind everyone in the chat, my colleague Molly has put in the link on how you can purchase the book if you would like to do that. And if you purchase the book there, they will be sending an autographed copy from Tim and Lorna. So it's a very special occasion to be able to do that and get that. I'm going to shift over to David next. David Rotberg, how are you doing, David?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing
Nice to see
great.
everyone.
Yeah, just want to know a little bit about what your thoughts or comments were about the book when you received that.
Like Tara and Michael said, there's one thing that, because I spoke with Lorna about this. I said, which hat should I be wearing when I'm on the panel? But I always end up wearing the parent guide hat. So I wear both hats. So from the guide perspective, and from working in a school for my whole career in Montessori, I echo a lot of what Tara was saying. Parents always want to know, well, what can we do at home? Like how should I make media like 10 minutes a day? And they're really, you can tell that they're really wanting, the struggle is real for them. They're really wanting to implement, what is it that you do in the classroom that we can do at home? How can Montessori work? So I think that this is a really wonderful book for any head of school or any teachers to show their parents, maybe even have it as part of a welcome to our school. Here's a book that we have for you as a gift, and we want to give this book to you. Let's talk about it. Let's have some questions. But then also as the guide in the room, the other hat tells me this is so applicable to parents. You know, as Montessorians, we're very pragmatic. We have to be by nature to do what we do every day. But this book unpacks so much in a very simple way that I think it's so adaptable to any home. You know, if this works for you, then do it this way. If this is the best way you know how to do this, then this is what can help you in your home. How can you foster this environment in your home? So I think it asks parents to really kind of go a step further in their self-study and their own preparation as parents and discover what works best for them. So I find this book beautiful because it's so adaptable. It can be you can go anywhere with it and it can work because the roots are there and the steps are there. So it's really nice because you don't feel, well, what did Lauren and Tim say? Okay, hold on. Children, stop fighting. I'm going to turn to page 41 or 23 and we're going to talk about, hold on one second, you know, and as a parent, we've done that before when we were raising our children. Like, oh, what did that book say we were supposed to do? Oh, so this book breaks things down in such a beautiful way. I think it's very respectful for the whole family and it honors everyone. So those are my initial thoughts, but I could keep going, so I'm going to be done.
Yeah, no, that's great, David. And I think that, you know, you being both a Montessori guide, as you said, and a parent of, I believe, is it four children that you have? So, you know, it gives people a perspective that you're juggling a lot, and to have, even though you're a credentialed Montessori educator, you know, that kind of goes out the window when you have to do it with your own children, right? It's a little different than managing a classroom. So using the principles and really seeing how you could be used. The other thing that struck me is you said, have your school get it and maybe give it during, you know, the admissions or onboarding process for families. And what occurred to me too was even to use it at parent-teacher conferences to help a parent who's struggling with Tara said, like a bedtime might be a difficult time, or if there's one thing that that a parent's struggling with in a conference, you can open to that page and say, hey, this might be really, here's some helpful tips, and perhaps the school could even, you know, be offering for sale books as well. So there's different ways to utilize these in just our everyday conversations with families. I also want to say how essentially important it is for us to recognize that this is not just for parents who already have children in Montessori schools. So this is for your neighbor who has their children in public schools, but thinks, you know, what is it about your kids that's so different? How do you not blow up every time your child, you know, makes a mess in the kitchen and all of that? This is for those parents too. This is for all parents who really want to make their life simpler, and I think, you know, more harmonious family life, let's say. I'd like to also, okay, the book link is in the chat, and also we have Facebook Live viewers that I'd like to acknowledge and welcome. I'm happy that you're here with us. If you would like to ask any questions or put any comments, please go ahead and post. We're happy to share those with our group here as well, so we can have both. So Cheryl is monitoring that, and we hope that you can engage and participate as well. We're very happy that you are here. Now, I'd like to go to, I think, let's see, Dr. Paul Epstein, there you are. I would love to hear your thoughts. Paul also, and I didn't say this, Paul is also a Montessori parent, former head of school, but also, most importantly, a Montessori grandparent. So when you have grandchildren, it just changes everything, doesn't it? Those of us who are grandparents, it really does make a difference in how we see how Montessori can be taken advantage of through all the years. So Paul, I'll stop talking. You go ahead and share what your thoughts were.
Well, first, it's a wonderful honor to be included in this great group of people. And over the past recent years, talking with Tim, talking with Lorna, as you were working on this book, when I received it, I began to understand why certain times we would talk, you seemed preoccupied and otherwise unavailable for other subjects and topics. I just want to say what I mean by that is congratulations, because you boiled down in such very direct but usable words what's very complicated and very, very overwhelming. The number of topics, you present them in such a clear and very focused way and find that to be very useful. So congratulations on that achievement. And as everyone has said, you can turn to a certain page and you can quickly find something that you need right now for what's going on in your family. Or yes, I think this can be applied by teachers also to classroom situations. Mm-hmm. I think for me, that's the value of this book, that it is so concise, but without it being watered down. It's somehow, congratulations again, you managed to create something so concise and powerful at the same time, where I find other books can be too simple and not useful, or too much information and too overwhelming. I'm a huge fan of the title of your book, Montessori for Every Family. I love that inclusion right away at the very beginning of the book. And I think that opens up the idea that Montessori is not just for people who somehow found their way to a school and have their child there, or it's not for me because this word Montessori is off-putting. I think for me, the key in the title is every family. And so I applaud the wisdom of opening this Montessori way of life to all families. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Paul. And that really leads us back to our authors, who we've not yet heard from, but we would love to hear from Lorna and Tim a little bit about what led you to write this book. How did you come up with this brilliant format and these concise words, like Paul was saying? Some of us can say it in 4 pages. You've said it in 1. And so I think there's a lot to be said. So Lorna, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Tim.
Thank you. I first want to just say thank you, everyone, for coming in tonight and being with us to celebrate. I especially want to thank my family that's here. Appreciate you coming. Tim and I have had a great time working on this book. Some days we'd even say to each other, this is really fun. And we worked on it for months and months, several days a week, and we were glad to do it. It's been a great adventure for us. I love I'm a real visual learner, and I have to say I love the illustrations in the book. There are captions on each illustration, and they go really well with what we've said in our words. We had a lot of collaboration between our publishers and the illustrator on that. Tim and I had a lot of input into what those illustrations would look like so that they did go with the different areas that we have in the book. The other thing that I really love about it is, and some of you have already mentioned this, is, I do book reviews as part of my job, and I've reviewed a lot of Montessori parenting books, and they're all very, very good. The authors are great people and they've done a good job. But what I like about this book more is that I don't have to read a 10 or 15 page chapter at a time. And I don't have to go from chapter 1 to chapter 20 and read it, systematically all the way through, because otherwise I'll miss something in the process. What I like about it is that there's a variety of ways that we are trying to communicate in that book. One is the brevity of the chapters. Most of them are about a 2-page spread. Another is we have some things in there, if you haven't seen the book yet, called Ages and Stages. because these principles that we talk about, Tim and I talk about, really are for any age child. You just have to switch it a little bit and make it work for the developmental stage that the child is at. So we did ages and stages. So a person could just look at, okay, here's what you do for, I don't know, 3 to 6 year olds. And here's what you do if you have an elementary child. Same topic, might just be technology. Let's just say that. What do you do, with your 2-year-old or your 3-year-old with technology? What's going to be different than what you do with your adolescent in terms of technology? So that's there. The real life stories are terrific. Some of the people that are here tonight wrote real life stories for our book, and they're in there. So you're famous. And your family's famous, by the way, too. So the real life stories really kind of, bring it home to people so that when they go into that book, they go, oh yeah, that David has 4 children, and he and his wife make time for family and do all these things. And maybe I can do that too, So, so there are real life stories, there's ages and stages. It's done in 2-page spreads mostly, so that it's not such a burden in a way to try to find the time to read a 10 or a 15-page chapter. So I don't know, Tim, I've had a great time with this book, and I'm so glad that we got to write it together. We've worked together for, I don't know, I think close to 30 years. And but this was just such a great opportunity to be able to work together on the book, and I thank you.
And it really was fun. Lorna, as Tara said, this really sounds like Lorna, and each and every word was debated by us for hours, because my take on how things go, a little different from Lorna's. And I didn't have the redirecting children's behavior background. I studied Dreikers and Freud and all kinds of different things. And so I looked at things a little bit more eclectically, and we really thought things through. If my children were here tonight, they'd probably be rolling around laughing, because the truth is, if you know me at all, there's dogs, there's horses, the death's a mess. It's really not at all like the way Lorna and Larry raised their kids. But what the heart of the book is there's so many ways to be a family. There's so many ways to be a really good human being. And that it's really not about being in a Montessori school or identifying yourself as a Montessori parent or a Montessori groupie. It's about being authentically yourself. Paul, many years ago, when his kids were young, described it as, we get the privilege of bearing witness as these young people, our own children, unfold in front of us. And that really is what Montessori is saying in Follow the Child. And the whole idea of the book is not about free range parenting. It's not about whether or not you make a lifelong commitment to send your kids to Montessori school or live your life the exact way we do. It's about the real messiness of marriage, about love, about grandparents in the home, about older siblings and younger siblings and squabbles that Lorna called. And it was just fascinating. I also want to give kudos to the people at DK who really worked with us. They were wonderful. It was quite a hoot as we'd go back and forth with their unique perspective, and they'd go running down a rabbit hole that we didn't want to go down. We have to say, wait a minute, nope, that's not what we're trying to say here. It was about a 6-month process, and it was a lot of fun. And we were hoping that the way schools will use the book is as one more tool in the toolbox as you create discussion groups or a course built where that might be one of the resources. I know we'll probably kick that in on top of what we already have with the parenting puzzle series. And finally, the real goal here was to talk about Saturday afternoons with your family and gardening and hiking or being in the city. Or Paul once said to me, in our family, it's a democracy. My wife and I get a vote and the kids get 100 times more votes than we do. In real life, it's a lot of humor. It's not all serious. And we tried to capture as much of that as we could.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tim and Lorna. We just offer our heartfelt congratulations. We're happy for this contribution. I think it was a missing ingredient in the Montessori community, and so we definitely appreciate that. I'd like to open it up to questions and comments from anyone attending, either through the Facebook live stream or if you are here with us on Zoom. If you have any comments or questions, would like to ask the authors, we are happy to have you do that now. So think about that. And again, Molly has put the link in the chat. We will put it in again. If you would like to purchase a book, you can do that there. And I will be watching. There's a virtual hand button. If you go to your reactions button, you can click on that and you will be able to unmute and talk with us and talk directly to these authors, which we'd be happy to have you do. One of the things, while I'm watching for that, I have a couple of things here. David has put a comment in the box, in the chat box, so you're welcome to look at that. One of the things that we've all been referring to, for those of you who have not seen the book, is Lorna mentioned it as ages and stages. There's one of the things that I loved, besides that it was just a couple page spread for each concept, was that you really could look at how you could apply it at different ages. So if you have different age children, or you have things that you want to really look at different ages, you can apply it differently. Paul has a question. Did you have other topics that did not make it into the book? If so, is there another book in the future? You had so much fun, it might be. Lorna or Tim? Oh, you're muted, Lorna. Okay, well, okay.
I'm just thinking, while we were writing the book, we'd write a section and then the editors would say, oh no, that's too many words. You got to cut some of that out. And we kept thinking, but we have more to say. We have more to say. And I can't think of a specific topic. Tim, can you?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good.
You are right now working on the continuation of the parenting puzzle.
Yes.
So you've got the parenting puzzle, the basics, and you're now working on the one for infants and toddlers.
Right. It's called Right from the Start.
I don't know that DK is going to be interested, but I think that something that really expands on the boiling it down into simple words, like we tried to in Tomorrow's Child, simple ideas of the newborn, the teenager. Paul and I years ago talked about a book, Adolescence Without Tears. There are so many things, whether it's us or others, you can't have too many great books written. And really what we try to do when we contribute is, if we can, to have it be heavily illustrated. And as my wife Joyce would say, aimed at about a third grade reading level, so you can be half asleep and it'll still make sense.
And Tim, that is one of the topics that we didn't get to talk about, which was newborns to 18 months. It just wasn't in the cards for that. And that is one of my favorite ages and stages in a child's life. And I think it's one of the most important ones. And so, that's certainly a topic that we would love to do more about. We'll see what happens.
That's, yeah, Lorna, I'm with you on that one. That 0 to 18 months, really neglected time. I would say 0 to 3, very neglected, not time in life, but in what we have to offer parents during that age. And what's really happening, the magic of birth to 3 is a phenomenal time that we tend to underestimate. So I'm with you on that one. We'll have to chat. We have a couple of, we have some congratulations, of course, in the chat. And Sarah says, I'm going to be promoting and referencing your wonderful practical book at our parent breakfast meeting on Friday. Thank you for your insights and wisdom. So another way, Sarah, thank you, because that really is another way to kind of give parents a support, right? This is just not to, I mean, we're happy to promote Tim and Lorna and to congratulate them. But at the same time, ultimately, the goal is that this serves children, right? We always bring it back to how does this impact our children? And parents having this kind of information at their fingertips that's easy to digest, I think will ultimately change the quality of their family life. And that's really what our goal is here. Any other thought? Lorna, you were going to say something?
I am. I'm glad you brought that up, Kathy, because, you know, I know that Tim agrees with me on this, but we all know that peace begins at home. World peace begins at home. We can do a lot in our schools. And this book is for every family. So they may not even be in a Montessori school. They may be in some other kind of school. And there are many really good schools out there that have great values. But certainly that's a hallmark of Montessori education, is that whole value of peace. And as I said, and global awareness and taking care of our planet and all of those kinds of things. As I said, we can do a lot in school. We sure can. But if we don't have our families in sync with us, it sometimes doesn't work out, or it's not quite as effective. I mean, it's still good, but if the family is right there on the same page with us, we will create world peace. I totally believe that. And it's why I do what I do and have done this for too many years to count. So I just wanted to say that as well.
I see lots of agreement out there, Lorna, on that. I'm going to go to Cassie next, and then we're going to start wrapping up, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Montessori Foundation Family Network and how you can get involved and get your parents and families involved in that. So Cassie, I'll go to you next.
I just wanted to congratulate you guys. I love this book. It is beautiful. It's charming. And I wish I had it when I was head of school, but I'm going to use it as a consultant. But what I wanted to say is it's so important to have that connection between families and teachers. And this is it. This is it. I think every teacher should have this. I think it should be in training centers. And I think every parent should have it, because I think the shared language would really, really serve the child. And we would be able to use it in a way that supports each family and each teacher, because they're always struggling sometimes to give the right kind of advice to parents. Well, this is going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it. So thank you so much.
Cassie, thank you. And thanks for being here. Cassie also is has been a multiple time guest on our webinar, our Family Life webinar series that Lorna hosts. And so Cassie, we appreciate your support and sharing everything you have to offer with Montessori families as well. The Montessori Foundation Family Network does offer this webinar series every Tuesday afternoon. As I said, it's a great thing. They're recorded. And so as the families you log in, if they're a member, or if your school is a group member, they have access to those recordings, and you can look up different topics or specific guests you'd like to hear. And there's just a treasure trove of good work in there. There's also, many other benefits. I'd love for Tim and or Lorna to just chat about what's happening at the Family Network. I know there's been a lot going on lately. And of course, one of the big benefits is the Tomorrow's Child magazine that we have been very proud of for over 20 years. Lorna or Tim, any thoughts on that?
Lorna?
Yeah. Well, one of the big things for me has been over the last year or so, two things. One is I have a team of volunteers, Cassie included, who meet with me every week and help me brainstorm and think about what topics we're going to do for these weekly webinars. And they often join me. Cheryl Allen is on that team. Well, no, yeah, she's on many teams. So she's on that team too. And it's just been great for me, because I used to do the webinars on my own and figure out who would be guests and what would the topics be and that sort of thing. So that's just been a wonderful thing for me. And I think it's made it so much better for our listeners. And so I really do appreciate that team. The second thing is we have a team of people at the Montessori Foundation now. Molly is one and Cheryl is one, and Tim and I, the four of us, have been working to add more and more information and resources and communication with families and parents throughout the world. So that has all been happening over the last about a year or so. So we're putting a lot more into this part of our foundation because we really just believe that families are so very important to us and to their children. Tim?
Well, part of our mission when we started the Montessori Foundation was our mission is to encourage, nurture, and develop strong, effective Montessori schools throughout the world. And we figured that the two ways we could do it is doing everything we could to support the development of really sophisticated, courageous Montessori school leaders who saw their schools holistically, stop the infighting within Montessori if we could, and try to get parents more engaged without promoting a particular brand. In other words, there's so many faces to Montessori, and people get so confused about AMS, AMI. This is the only authentic school across town or whatever. And our goal was to try to get across the idea that parents really are the reason why the schools exist. Good, smart, committed, networked parents may or may not be at the right school at a given moment, but they're the real force. And if we could, we'd get their kids because they're even stronger than we are. So our mission is to try to create a way of supporting schools through development of parents who are far more willing to be supportive, both of an individual school and the idea of Montessori as a change agent in family life and in society around the world. That's why it all happens. And so we renamed it. The Montessori Family Alliance is now the network. And we're really trying to get effectively chapters going in every city, social clubs for Montessori kids, proms for the Montessori middle and high school, whatever people want, bowling leagues, golf teams. The idea that a Montessori child has a sense of identity and that parents have more of a sense of identity instead of defending their decision to send their children to a non-typical school. The more kids we have in our schools, the fewer kids will leave because they don't have enough friends. That's our mission.
Thank you for that, Tim. I have a question. I know we're a little bit over time, but I have to ask Joe's question because Joe hasn't asked it. Is there any work plan that includes farming? And can Tim please tell us a little more about his love for all his wonderful animals and how caring for animals is great for children? So Tim, I have to ask you, and maybe some, I don't know, they're out there in the winery picking the grapes. I've seen the photos. So there's a lot going on over there.
That's right. Well, Montessori called them the children of the earth, Erdkinder, and many of us think that that's only for adolescents. It's really the idea that children need to be grounded in place. They need to be able to go out of doors, to do real things in the real world, and that sometimes the very best therapy is a school rabbit or chickens or horses or cows, or we used to have Salvador Dali Llama, remember? Or Jezebel the mule at Barry. So Montessori in the 20s and so forth used to say to the teachers in training, send the child to the garden. And the assumption was every school was into gardening. And so whether or not you're teaching gardening formally, the whole idea of a place, of the creation of timeless beauty indoors and out, of creating a place where children feel safe to be able to sit outside and work under cover or under a tree or climb a tree, or Paul's school used to build forts. All of this is just part of it. And Joe, I certainly don't consider myself a master gardener. I do live on a farm and I have horses and dogs and all that. But I don't think people need to go out and buy a 100-acre place to have a school. Wherever you are, Tokyo, Beijing, wherever, you do with what you've got, and you try to give kids a real sense of connection to the earth wherever, in whatever way you can.
Yeah, thanks for answering that final question, Tim. I know it's a passion of yours, so I didn't want to overlook that particular question. Thank you, Joe, for that. I want to thank everyone. And in the chat, there's a lot of congratulations and different ideas for how people will use the book. We so appreciate everyone coming this evening and celebrating with us. And congratulations to Tim and Lorna. I am very happy for you and very happy for your contribution to the Montessori community. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Thanks
Goodbye,
for
everyone.
coming.
Lauren, I want to thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you, Tim. It was fun. Bye,
Yep.
everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
See-
Good night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul, for getting up so
Yeah,
early.
thank you to all our panelists. Yes, Michael.
Yes, all our
everybody.
panelists.
Thanks, Michael.
And
Hello.
Cheryl
Thank
and
you, guys.
Molly. And Cassie. All right.
I'll stop the
Very, very good.
recording.